Greg's best known for being the president of Continental Airlines when they turned that around here and kind of wish he was back. But he's a great success. He now leads CCMP Capital as the chairman and chief executive. It has around $15 billion of assets under management. He was also very active as a CEO of several other, president of several other companies besides Continental. He was with TWC and also with Burger King. Greg serves on a lot of boards, Home Depot being the one particularly as the lead director. He's also kind of a Renaissance man. He ended up writing a book, Right Away and All at Once, which he will actually talk about. He also, believe it or not, won an Emmy, which I didn't know. He ended up getting a friend of ours that had a film, and Greg was sponsoring that and actually won an Emmy. So he is an all-around dude. He's married to Rhonda. They've got 3 kids. He's an avid Baylor fan since his kids went there. I forgot to do a shout out to TCU for Will. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Greg Brenneman.
Thanks, Kyle. I think Will and I usually have our mothers do these introductions, but Kyle, you may have taken their place, so they're going to be upset with you. It's great to be here with you today, and particularly to be sandwiched between 2 really good friends, in Will and Kyle. And Will, thanks for sharing that. It was absolutely terrific. What I wanted to talk about today was turnarounds in business and turnarounds in life. They asked me to talk about that. It's really great to be able to do that in Houston because I think there's just such a camaraderie in Houston between the disciples in the Bible and the folks, business folks here in the Houston community. And if you remember, 4 of the 12 disciples were actually fishermen, right? They were. Jesus recruited them right at the Sea of Galilee as they were fishing, and I think the strategy actually of the oil and gas guys, those of you who are in that industry in this room, and the fishermen are exactly the same. You basically throw a line in and pray, right? So you have a lot in common. But I'm going to start by they asked me to talk about my book, so I figured I'd give you a kind of a shameless plug for why I wrote the book. The book's entitled Right Away and All at Once. 5 steps to transform your business and enrich your life. And the way this book came about is I'd written, actually at the request of the Harvard Business Review, an article after we turned around Continental called Right Away and All at Once, How We Saved Continental Airlines. And that turned into a bestseller at the Harvard Business Review, so there were a bunch of publishers that came and bugged me for about 20 years almost to write a book. And I said, I really don't want to write a book. I can't think of anything that would take more time and be of less value than actually writing a book. And I don't know how many of you, I'm an avid reader, but have ever read David Brooks' book, The Road to Character. If you haven't, it's an absolutely terrific book. David has kind of found his way to faith through that book. And he talks about 2 kinds of virtues in there, resume virtues and eulogy virtues, right? Resume virtues are what you all sort of tell Will when you want him to hire you at Quantum. And eulogy virtues are what you want somebody to say at your funeral, right? You can kind of think about those kind of virtues. And writing a book really felt like a resume virtue to me. It just wasn't something I wanted to do. And by the way, never do it again. So kind of why did I write it? About 10 years ago, I felt like I needed my own turnaround. You know, I was in my mid-40s and had actually done a number of pretty successful turnarounds in business, and had actually achieved a lot from a world point of view. But I felt really empty inside, and I wasn't into the sort of normal sins of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But I felt more like the church that Jesus refers to in Revelation in Laodicea. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but in Revelation 3:16, he talks about this church, and he says, "So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth." So you weren't either on fire or completely off the rails, but you were just kind of in the middle. And I don't know if any of you are at that stage in your life or have gone through a period like that in your life. But I did, and so I actually took the 5 steps I used to turn around businesses, essentially, and said, I wonder if I could turn around me. So I actually tried. I did the 5 steps, I'll describe them in a second, and it worked. And then I told my friends about it that were kind of experiencing the same thing, and it worked for them too. So the only reason I agreed to write the book is because I found a publisher that was dumb enough to allow me to integrate both the business steps and the life steps side by side and talk about those. And that all of a sudden kind of felt like a eulogy virtue, that it might be something worth doing. I then actually, before I got it published, I sent it out to a few friends. I sent it to Mitt Romney, who some of you may have heard of, is a Mormon guy that ran for president. I sent it to Jamie Dimon, who's a Jewish guy, as chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase. Some of you may be here from JP Morgan Chase. I sent it to Kyle, obviously read it. I sent it to Eric Weinemeyer. Eric is a blind guy who's climbed all 7 summits, kayaked the Grand Canyon, paraglides blind. He's agnostic, by the way. Not for long, I hope. Who's a good buddy of mine. I was with him last weekend in Colorado. And then I sent it to Tim Keller, who I figured Tim Keller, if you've ever heard of Tim or read anything he did, he's a famous pastor and writer, best-selling writer, and I thought, well, if Tim read it and said I wasn't like way off the rails, it would probably be good. And they all sent back kind of endorsements for it, so I said, well, that must be good. And then we released it in February, and in December it was actually named one of Fortune's 5 best business books, not talking about faith books. So hopefully you can pick it up and read it sometime. But I'd really like to talk today about developing eulogy virtues, not resume virtues, and how to integrate faith and life and work, not try and balance them. Because if you try and balance them, it won't work. Before I do that, and I'm going to fly through that real quick, because the last thing Kyle whispered to me is stay on time. Just ask you a simple question. Why are you in business? Why are you in business? Kind of an important question. What is your role in the world as a business person? Do you ever think about that? Does that ever cross your mind? Of all the things you could choose to do, why business? I think Dorothy Sayers does the best job to me of describing and answering what we're in business to do. She was a unique individual, by the way. She was born in Victorian England in 1893, graduated from Oxford as one of the first women to graduate from Oxford, was a playwright and a theologian, and she says this. She says, work is not primarily a thing one does to live, but a thing one lives to do. It is or should be the full expression of a worker's facilities, the thing in which one finds spiritual, mental, bodily satisfaction, the medium in which one offers himself to God. Do you look at your job that way? Do you look at your job as something that you offer to God? The Bible doubles down on this in a verse that actually we'll use, and I'll use a slightly different translation. It's Colossians 23 and 24, where it says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you're working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you inheritance and your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ. So what is your role in the world? I think for all of us, our role as business people is first and foremost to create jobs. Through jobs, people can actually support their families, their extended families, and have a real purpose in life. And secondly is to change lives. So think about that as you think about your own job. Now I'm going to give you some business content, okay? Kyle talked a little bit about what I've done. We've all had a lot of experience. One of my other good friends, Malcolm Gladwell, who's the author that wrote Blink, Outliers, David and Goliath, some of you may have actually read his books. He actually talks in Outliers about a concept called you need to get 10,000 hours in anything to be good at it. Whether it's sports, music, business, healthcare, whatever it is. And you can tell by the size of my gut and the lack of my hair, I've got way more than my 10,000 hours in business. So let me give you really quickly 5 steps that you can use to transform your business. And this kind of works whether you're running a business, whether you have one, or whether you're actually evaluating businesses that you want to buy. In private equity, where Will and I are now, we're constantly evaluating businesses and management teams, and this is a really good prism to look through. So step 1 is have a plan and track your progress, right? In every business that we buy at CCMP, or quite frankly that I ran, I'd write a 1-page plan for the business. I'd take out a piece of paper and I'd write market, financial, product, and people. And I'd figure out what are the 3 to 5 value levers that if you pull them would actually drive improvement in that business. And it's never any more than that. We'll use the quote about simplicity from Jack Welch. It's absolutely critical in business. Let me give you an example of this that maybe felt close to home for some of you that look a little more like I do than some of the younger folks in the room. So when we walked into Continental, it was a disaster. It was the 10th place airline, 10th out of 10 in on time, 10th out of 10 in baggage handling, 10th out of 10 in customer complaints. Bankrupt twice in 10 years and 10 presidents in 10 years. Other than that, it's a wonderful company. So we wrote this plan called the Go Forward Plan, and the market plan was fly to win, the financial plan, fund the future, the product plan, make reliability a reality, the people plan on one page called Working Together, right? Just a quick example on fly to win. We found the fastest way to make money is stop doing things that lose it. Kind of funny how that works. And so I looked at the flight schedule and discovered 18% of the flying was cash flow negative. So I asked the scheduling guys, why do we fly from Greensboro to Greenville 8 times a day when there are only 2 customers on the first flight? And they'd say, well, Greg, it was strategic. And I'd say, well, when does last time it made money? And they'd say, well, it never did. I'd say, how strategic could that be? And couldn't we just charter a Learjet to get you and your girlfriend back and forth? Because it'd be a lot cheaper than running all these planes. So that's have a plan and track your progress. The second thing in business is build a fortress balance sheet. You know, in our business, again, in private equity, we're like a long-dated option. You just want to make sure nobody shortens the date on you, right? You know, where you run out of cash. And that's mainly have enough cash and have your debt maturities match your asset base, essentially. The best example I got of that was in the fall of '08. I don't know how many of you remember it, the great financial crisis. I went in to go see my good buddy, Jamie Dimon. And I walked in at 9 o'clock in the morning to JP Morgan Chase into Jamie's office, and his hair was all messed up and his sleeves were rolled up. And I don't know how many of you know Jamie. You've probably seen him on TV. He's the most dapper guy in the world. And I said, Jamie, you look like crap. And he said, well, Greg, he said, I canceled. I said, I'm going to get out of here. I can tell you're really busy and waiting for the next call and Hank Paulson telling you what you need to buy. And he said, no, sit down. He said, I cancel all my meetings every day now, and I just wait for the next call to come, right? The next shoe to drop. Essentially, I'm managing. Do it. Listen, I said, how can you kind of keep your head in all that? He said, I have a fortress balance sheet. I said, what do you mean? And he took 10 minutes and took me through every balance sheet item on the JP Morgan Chase balance sheet. And said, I'm going to be okay, regardless of what happens here, because we didn't get into mortgages at the wrong time, we didn't do these other things. So have a fortress balance sheet, make sure you have enough cash. The third thing is think money in, not money out. You have to think about how to grow revenue in business to be successful. You cannot cut your way to prosperity. Every dollar of growth you put on your business is worth 4 times when you go to sell your business than a dollar of cost reduction is. So think money in, not money out. The next thing, step 4, is build a team, clean house if necessary. So if you think about writing that one-page plan, do it for your business. Sit down and write a one-page plan, and then use that plan without thinking about your existing organization and actually sort of say, what organization do I need to execute on that plan? What people do I need? When you do that in a really good business, you find out you have about 70% of the right people to get done what you want to get done. When you look at a turnaround, you have about 20%. So in Continental, we let 50 of the 61 officers go when we were doing that turnaround and hired 20 really smart people that could help us get it there. We treated them with dignity and respect on their way out, but it's hard to pull the sled dog out of the ditch with the same dog that was kind of let it in. So you often need to get that right organization in place. And then step 5, and this is the last of the business content, is let the inmates run the asylum. So after you have the right plan, after you have a fortress balance sheet, after you've thought about how to generate revenue, and after you have the right team, you actually need to empower people to go get it done, right? And we put in some incentives when we were at Continental, and some of you kind of may remember some of this, where we gave away Eddie Bauer Ford Explorers for perfect attendance. We put in place one incentive, which was an on-time bonus incentive. We had never been better than number 10th out of 10 airlines in on-time. And we sort of said, hey, if we're first in on-time, we'll give you $100. And every time we're second or third, we'll give you $65. Not out of into your normal paycheck. You get a separate check. Payroll taxes come out of your other paycheck. And it says, thank you for helping us be on time every month. Well, the first month we did that, we went from 10th to 4th. And the next 2 months and ever after, we were first. Right, because everybody wanted the $100. I don't have time to tell you all the stories. There were a lot of great stories around the incentives of that. But I did have a flight attendant call me right after we did that, and she said, Greg, do you know what $100 is to me? I said, I have no idea. she was crying. She said, I took my kids to the cereal aisle of the grocery store, told them to buy all the sugar-coated cereal they wanted. Nobody had ever given us anything anymore. A mechanic calls me and he says, do you know what $100 is to me? And I said, I have no idea. I'm not sure I wanted to know. He said, it's 2 beers and a table dance. I said, that's why we give you the $100. But what's more important than the 5 steps to turn around a company is the corollary steps to turn around your life. And this is what made the most difference to me, is when I went in and really took a look at my life. So step 1, remember, was have a plan and track your progress. Step 1 in life is stay focused with some simple life rules. How many of you have ever played poker? How many of you play poker? You're kind of admitting it in a Christian setting. That's good. In poker, you have red chips, white chips, blue chips, right? Blue chips, $25, red chips, $10, white chips, $1. Well, in our life, what we tend to do is make to-do lists, right? Either mentally or actually physically. And all the things, if you read down your to-do list, I guarantee you, go do it when you get back to the office. They'll all be white chips. Because we like crossing those things off. So you need to do a retrospective and sort of think, what are the real blue chip things in my life? What do I want to make sure are my eulogy virtues? What do I want to get done? I'm just going to read mine to you to give you kind of a sense of how this works. I said, I use the 5 F's, faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, to do this. So I said, in faith, I'm a Christian. I believe in the resurrected Christ and the desire to become an intimate of God's. A.W. Tozer, famous theologian, has a statement, God doesn't have favorites, he does have intimates. So how do you become an intimate of God's? If you don't have that belief, actually Kyle's going to talk in a little bit, but talk to somebody here before you leave, because it would be well worth spending some time talking more about that. In family, I said, I believe my most important relationship is with my wife Rhonda, my most important legacy with my 3 kids, and my obligation is to show my parents I value them. So what steps do I need to take to do that? I have this kind of fun saying that says happiness is when the kids leave and the dog dies. And if you manage your marriage, that's actually true. And friends, I said, I find that I value an enduring lifetime relationships with those I'm close to. Fitness, I want to take care of myself, so if at all possible, I do everything in my power to have good health throughout my life. And finance, I believe I should give my best effort to those whose money I'm stewarding, and then be a faithful servant by trying to give it all back in my lifetime. So, can I get rid of all my money in my lifetime? I had an uncle that did that. I don't have time to talk about, but it's pretty amazing. He became a millionaire when millionaires weren't cool, and he died at 99 and went broke at 97. Intentional. That's pretty cool. The second step, remember, was have a fortress balance sheet. In life, I call that choose freedom. Make sure that your finances in life become your faithful servant and not a relentless master. You can't achieve your life goals, your blue chips in life, if you're actually beholden to somebody else financially. So you have to kind of clean that up. Remember, in business, step 3 was think money in, not money out. In life, it's exactly the opposite. Think money out, not money in. Provide for those in need. If you look across every single faith and non-faith-based worldview, agnostics, atheists, the Jewish people, Muslims, Islam, Christianity, the one thing they all agree on is generosity is important. Generosity is the only path to happiness and the only cure to materialism. That's true in every single worldview. Step 4, remember, was build a team in your business that allows you to accomplish your plan. In life, it's the same, and I want to give you a little hint here, because this doesn't sound that cool, but it actually works really well. Think about Jesus. He had the 4 that he was closest to, the 12 disciples, the 72, and then essentially the masses, right? That's how he managed his life, in concentric circles. If you think about your own life, and you've got to take your family outside of this because you have a special obligation there, I guarantee you there's somebody in your life that's like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, that takes 80% of the time and adds very little of the value to helping you accomplish your goals. Chances are, if they're that to you, you're that to them too. You don't have to get rid of them as a friend. Just kind of move them out a little bit. Instead of meeting them every day, meet them once a month. The conversations get a lot better. Trust me, it works. But you need to surround yourself with people that actually can energize you. And that's what really Kyle and Hal Chappelle and Bill Nath are to me. We meet every Sunday morning, 6:30 to 8:30 before church. and encourage each other. We pray for each other. We study Scripture together. We memorize Scripture together. We've been doing it for a decade now. It makes a world of difference. If you don't have a group like that, find one. And in step 5, remember, was let the inmates run the asylum. And step 5 in life is invest in family and friends. And I'll tell you just a final story of a buddy of mine that does that better than anybody I've ever seen. Britt Harris. Britt is the CIO of Texas Teachers, third largest pension fund in the country. Britt was the CEO of Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund, making a ton of money, decided he wanted to get back in the second half of his life, and came back to Texas because his mom was a school teacher, and he thought the way he could help was to invest the money for the teachers of Texas. That Texas Teachers, by the way, has by far the highest returns of any public pension fund in the United States. Britt's been there about 10 years. But Britt didn't stop there. He actually, some of you are Aggies, he started a class at Texas A&M called Titans of Investing, which is basically a life skills class, sort of wrapped in a fancy title. He bought a house next to the university. Instead of a key on the house, he's got a passcode. For 11 years, he's had 20 terrific kids a semester. He knows where every single kid is. He's helped them to get jobs, and they all have the code to that house. So he's turned the house into basically a place where they have refuge and can actually interact with each other. Folks, that's a eulogy virtue. When Britt looks back over his life, he's going to say, I've got hundreds of kids I've actually poured into in a thoughtful way. And I just challenge you as you leave today, think about what those blue chips are in your life. What eulogy virtues do you want to leave? I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle, and I think he's going to tell a little bit about his life story and how to integrate your faith in your life. So, thank you.